Hi, Bumi.
Hi, Putumi. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Yeah, we should be live now, and I'm not seeing your face.
Give me a sec. You see me now? Is that good?
Okay, sure.
Can you see me?
Yeah. Yeah, I can see you. Yeah, welcome, guys. Yeah, we're gonna start shortly, and I just wanna see if there's any guest that's gonna join the conversation. Yeah, so let's just give them a minute or so. Otherwise, we'll kick off the session. So yeah, in the meantime, please, share your comments, whether using LinkedIn or YouTube. And what we'll do is, like, in between, we will just, choose some questions that we can respond to.
Right.
Cool. Yeah, let me just quickly grab some water.
Right.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I'm back. Yeah, I'm seeing some people.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see if I'm just trying to respond to some chats quick. Just give me a moment.
All right.
Otherwise, okay. It's fine, Bumi. I think we can kick off. Yeah, I just want to say thank you to everyone who's joined us. Yeah, we have these design knowledge sharing sessions every Thursday, this time 3 to 4. And yeah, so please, come and join us. And also, if you do have a topic that you want to present, please reach out to us. And yeah, so the main aim is to connect, inspire, and build an African design community. And I want us to contribute, irrespective of the companies or the brands that we're working for. And yeah, the main aim is to really, collaborate beyond those brands, share knowledge, and take the digital experience to the next level. Yeah, so let me, before we begin, Bumi, I want you to introduce yourself, and also Pablo, I want you to introduce yourself, and then after that, we can kick off the session. Pablo,
Okay.
please, if you don't mind, switch on your camera. Bumi, I'm not seeing your camera. Hi.
What's up? Is the light okay? You guys can see me.
Yeah, we can see you. Yeah, it's not as clear, but at least we can see that there's an image of a human being.
That's sorry about that. I'm not at home, so yeah. I'm
Yeah,
improvising.
no, it's fine. It's fine. I mean, look, if you're comfortable, you can share, the hotel background.
Nothing to write home about. Yeah. All right. Cool.
Yeah, so please, yeah, introduce yourselves, Pablo and Bumi.
Ladies first.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I am Babalo Makatlawan Cholo, and I am a UX researcher, currently busy with my master's, and I'm based in the UK. Just looked outside my window. It's partly cloudy today with a chance of rain, and I'm really excited to speak about AI, machine learning, and how that can help users in achieving, well, how we can help users in really having better experiences. So, yeah, I'm really looking forward to this.
Sure. No, thanks. Yeah, thanks. Yeah. Well, in South Africa, yeah, it's quite sunny, especially in Johannesburg. I can't speak about Cape Town. Yeah, because that's a different, beautiful country. But yeah, I mean, thanks a lot, Babalo. And yeah, so for those who are curious to know her, you can reach out to her via LinkedIn, and she's also gonna be speaking. We have a topic lined up for her. But yeah, please, Bumi, jump in.
Oh, hi guys. I'm Mpumelelo. That's my name. Currently heading up UX at Old Mutual. Yeah, and basically the things that currently preoccupy me in the design space and that I'm passionate about are really developing designers. I guess number one, how do we get more designers into design? How do we create a larger community in essence, because I think the practice is important. The practice of design is important to progressing humanity in general. The other thing I'm passionate about is design leadership, which links directly to my first point. How do we sustain, or how do we start to cultivate leadership from the design pool, right? Not necessarily from the conventional areas of business and MBAs, but my theory is that we need more designers being business leaders, right? So yeah, so that's really kind of where my focus is at. And yeah, and then obviously the other thing is really about the future of design. Preoccupied about some of this tech. Some of it, most of it, I don't understand, to be honest. Some of it, I try to, just like this topic here, and you'll see, I'm not a master of it, but it was just a conversation I thought we need to have. So Mputumi just provided the platform. So yeah, so those are the things. We run a community in the Old Mutual space. We've got quite a few designers in there, almost 30, including our intern group. And yeah, we try to drive collaboration and just developing the community. And yeah, thanks Mputumi and for your initiative on the continent to try and drive these types of communications as well. Thanks.
Okay, sure. No, thanks, Bumi. Thanks, Pablo, for the intros. Yeah, so I want us to have a conversation, today, and the reason why I'm saying it's a conversation, because I want us to share our own like African perspective, right? And as much as we get inspiration from international brands that we all know about, but yeah, I think it's great that we try to elevate our own African stories, our own like startups and the companies that are doing great. Yeah, so without wasting any time, I'm going to hand over to you, Mbumi, to really open the platform for us to have a conversation about using artificial intelligence, machine learning to improve, experience. So yeah, guys, please, if you do have questions, if you have maybe like some stories to share, please do so. Just, share your comments, and yeah, I will be selecting some, and I'm going to start off by selecting some greetings. I've seen some people that we've worked with. Shout out to Riyad Gordon. Yeah, he was one of the design system engineers that we've worked with. Great guy to work with. And I'm seeing Daniel, Andrew, Moses. Thanks guys for joining. I can't mention everyone, but yeah, please, yeah, I'll be sharing your highs and your questions. Please, Bumi, over to you.
Cool. All right. Thanks, Mputumi. me. Give me a sec here. Okay. Get this right. Okay. All right. Trying. Give me a sec. Okay. That's fine. Can you all see Figma?
Yes, we can.
All right. Okay. Let's try and kill this. Cool. Yeah, that looks okay. I can't see myself, but I hope you guys can see and hear me. So thanks, guys. Thanks for the audience and for the platform for 2 minutes. So around UX and UI and AI that have been just on my mind, and I'm trying to deepen my understanding of it. So what I thought I'd do is I'd start with kind of the definitions, right? What it is, and what we are trying to do in the experience design space. Why would it be relevant? Why it's important to UX, and then maybe we can see some examples, and we can talk about how it is we can achieve those examples. Cool. So Putumi, yeah, I'll rely on you to for the timing and the fielding of the questions, but I'll leave it to you.
Sure. No, that's fine. Yeah, I mean, we will freestyle. These sessions are meant to be a bit informal. Yeah, so guys, please, if you have questions, comments, I'll be sharing them, and I'll also be posing those to Mbumi. I will respond to some, and also I will allow Pablo to jump in. Sure.
Cool. So obviously scouring some of the definitions and trying to find something that's least technical, that's most human-centered, I guess. And this is what I found. I think basically what I've learned is that obviously machine learning is a subset, right, of artificial intelligence as the kind of umbrella term for machine learning and other things like neural networks, right? So the one that I thought was best was really this one that says artificial intelligence is a simulation or imitation of intelligent behavior, right? Mostly, kind of the headliner in terms of that intelligent behavior is kind of it's enabled primarily by the ability to learn, right? And that's really what makes humans such an advanced species, our ability to learn. So it's really an imitation of intelligent behavior. And then machine learning is an approach towards that, right? Machine learning is what enables something like something to imitate that intelligence in essence, right? So I've got a few slides here to just talk through some of the stuff, and I'm hoping that I can trigger some thoughts and some imagination as well, right? So I always want to start with what we are trying to do from a user experience perspective. So we've got our definition in terms of what information, artificial intelligence and machine learning is trying to do, right? In terms of just express intelligence, right? But what are we trying to do, right? How do these agendas start to converge at some point? And this is always important for me to go back to, right? So we've spoken about this before on the platform, where we say, right? What we are trying to do right now at a design level is that, most of the stuff about designing forms, designing flows, designing, information architectures, making sure there's affordances, et cetera, and that people can attain task completion. This stuff is hygiene stuff, right? This is the objective type of stuff where anybody or any of our applications should be doing, right? So we don't even discuss this a lot nowadays, right? Although obviously this is really kind of the base, right? It's a hygiene factor. The designs or the experiences that we design need to be usable, right? They need to not cause frustration, right? Or they need to be smooth, and they need to be economical in terms of interaction cost. So this is really the basics, right? Where we get to, we want to get to a point where things are convenient, they're pleasurable, and they're meaningful. We want to get into the space of actual experiences, right? Not the thing that says, can it be done or can it not be done, but how was it done? How do I feel now that it's done? Right? I just made a big payment. I've got an experience that that results from making that payment. How do we design for that, right? How do we make things more convenient? How do we make them more pleasurable? And hopefully, how do we make them more meaningful, right? So that's really it. So you've got this technical, this kind of ability now that's part of our tool set, presumably, with AI. And then we've got these objectives that say, we're trying to do beyond the basics now in design. We're really trying to do meaningful stuff, and we're trying to create pleasurable experiences, right? Now,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I think just want to comment on that, right? I think it's very important for us, as designers, to be proactive in these conversations, so that we can showcase what a meaningful experience feels like, looks like, etc. And instead of us just being like led by technology, right? Because the capability is there, it's growing, it's maturing, but it's also like up to us as designers to really show our own understanding and translate this technical capability into meaningful experiences.
Yeah, thanks, Mputume. And I'm hoping, in fact, as a follow up to this conversation, to really delve deeper into the how and how we navigate these conversations in our respective spaces or companies, and what are the tool sets that are available to designers, right, to be able to dabble in some of these things, so that they can have those conversations. And some of the partnerships or the allies that you need to partner with, or that you need to build to be able to do it. Yeah, cool. So I think this is fairly intuitive to all of us, in terms of our intent, right? Just getting past the can you do it? Is it the ability to do it versus am I motivated emotionally, implicitly, to be able to actually interact with a certain product because it gives me convenience, pleasure, and some level of meaningfulness. So then I thought, okay, what is it, right, that machine learning actually does? Like, do we know what it does? Like, yeah, we see some of this. We use apps every day, and I'll just briefly show you 2 or 3 examples. But we use apps every single day. But do we know what machine learning is actually doing to actually produce some of those experiences? Right. So there's 3 fundamental things or capabilities that machine learning enables, right? It's to detect, to predict, and to generate, right? Now, obviously, preparing for this talk, I try to read quite a lot, and a lot of the stuff is too technical even for me. But this is kind of a definition that I thought that could resonate with us and hit at a level of the design community. So detection is obviously the things that we do every day. So that when you search, for instance, or when you search via text or via speech, the machine learning is able to actually interpret what you are saying. right? Which is really the detection. You can image search today. Again, you can take a picture of something and you can search it on Google, or you can search for commonalities. You can search for people in multiple images, right? You can also, machine learning can also detect behavior, right? If you do something over a period of time, or a collective of people does something over a period of time, it can detect that, right? Then we move into the prediction space, right? So using some of that capability, or using just data in general and the detection capability, then it starts to predict, right? We start to predict what could happen next, and what interestingly happens with the predictions. And one of the things that have put me off with trying to think about or experiment in artificial intelligence or machine learning is, what if I've got a hypothesis that this is the thing, but what if this prediction is completely wrong, right? And I find that actually how they build predictive models is also the same way that we build our own hypotheses and try to test them in our own qualitative methods, right? They also have a way of, that is central. It's not an optional thing. How they build models is they build an hypothesis, they get some data, and they try to reduce the amount of failure that happens in that prediction model, right? It's also a human task, by the way, to say, we gave this thing data, we have a hypothesis from a use case perspective, we are going to see what it comes out with, and then we will kind of start to tell it what looks good and what doesn't, right? So and this is not far from what we do in the design space, right? When we design and then we validate certain things. So that point for me was important to discover, because it kind of reduced the intimidation of perfectly working models that we experience every day, where the thing is like 99% correct about certain things, right? There's certain spaces obviously that kind of struggle a little bit, where you're like, this doesn't look quite, but that's the process, right? The point of it is that the failure should not be catastrophic, right? You can imagine in use cases like autonomous driving, and et cetera, right? Those things you need to manage that relatively well. You need to take time to mature your prediction in such a way that you can minimize the impact of failure, right? And then obviously that failure has to happen in such a way that it's natural, that it doesn't feel like an error. And we'll talk to that a little bit in the next slide. Mputu?
Yeah, no, sure. No, I was just like, agreeing with you, because I think that's why it's very important, like for us, to lead the conversation as designers beyond the brands that we're working for, to actually ask ourselves, right, what are those like meaningful, interactions, or the meaningful, scenarios that we expect, to be done systematically, and once we have that like strong focus and strong focus on scenarios, we create like a much more like safer, failing environment, like for us, because being everywhere, you're likely to to fail, and because you can't like cover like all the possible scenarios, and we can't predict the machines what they can do on their own. It's okay if you have a bug on a website that is supposed to do basic functionality, but the implications, and also there's the accountability and responsibility side to it. If something goes wrong, who's accountable for that negative possible outcome.
Yeah, absolutely. So this part of this kind of prediction is really at the core, and this is what for me as a designer really starts to starts to excite me. You say, okay, cool. How do I predict certain things, right? So other things that obviously you can predict is individual behavior, collective behavior. And we kind of get a sense, right? If you do things a specific amount of time, you start to see an app start to change in a specific way that you don't have to take so much effort to be able to do that, right? Uber is a good example, and that's one of the examples that I have here, right? But what I wanted to do with the examples, I wanted to really intersect them with this kind of detect, predict, generate with what are we doing at an experience level, right? Is this whatever detection prediction generation, is it meaningful, is it pleasurable, right? But in a simple way, right? So so I think we understand collective and individual behavior. We know collectives like traffic and stuff like that. You can wake up in the morning and it'll give you time and say the destination will take 20 minutes longer because this is what's happening in the context, right? This is that evolution from kind of just personalizing at your level with your data to kind of contextualizing, as it were, right? Which is really the next level. That's where you want your personalization to be. You want it to be personalized, but in context of what you're doing, right? So generation or kind of creation, that's how I look at it as well, is creating things now based on this learning, right? So we know, I'm sure a lot of us have seen this, all of these posts about DALI, where you punch in some words and it just creates some visual art based on what you've typed, right? And a lot of this stuff looks really good, right? Some of it dodgy, but some of it looks good, right? Music as well, generating playlists and actual music, right, based on just data that has been fed, right? And also text, right? That's kind of an obvious one in conversational UIs or chatbots, right? That's exactly what's happening, right? The machine learning is dynamically, creating text in such a way that it feels and sounds like actually you are talking to a human being, right? And this is what we are trying to do. We are trying to humanize tech, as it were, right? Because this is the thing that creates a better experience, right?
Yeah,
so
I think it's a great opportunity for us as designers, right? Because if you can use natural processing, language, to generate, visual art, those images based on what you type, because we often look for images that are best suited for a particular article or a particular journey, right? And I think as a space like matures, we'll be able to enhance, those experiences, and and have like a far richer experience that we can produce at a scale, right? Because the communication has gotten like richer, the use of multimedia has grown so much, right? And this will help us to position ourselves, especially like in the 3D space, once we start talking about like Web3, because we can't just like be relying on like text heavy websites, but like more like engaging and interactive multimedia. And I think we're like in the right space. I mean, I was like looking at this other like editing software, where it does a lot of like a bunch of stuff. I think it's called like Run My Way or something, ML. And I love like how it has taken an approach to like really rapidly help a video editor to produce like those like awesome moments. And I mean, the capability is like, it's quite nice. And when you're talking about the predictability, the detection and the risk, right? And it's one of those like cases where video editing using AI is a much like safer space to play in, right? And as the thinking and the approach matures, we'll be able to take those lessons, and incorporate them into like the much like riskier, playing fields.
Yeah. Cool. So yeah, I think for me, there's even even some of the things that you see now coming out in whatever, in PowerPoint and in Google Slides, where it starts to generate or just recommend some layouts and stuff like that. It's like, yeah, some of it is messy, but every now and then, they get it right, and that's eventually that it's gonna get to a point where they get it right 80% of the time, right? Where you're just gonna throw some stuff on a slide and that's it, right? But I think if I bring it back to kind of what we do in most of our organizations, trying to drive business objectives and e-commerce, banking or whatever the case may be, right? This, we need to start having that conversation about what does this generate start to look like, right? Because I'm really interested from a design leadership perspective in showing value of design, of UX, right? If we are to show value of UX, we need to start thinking critically about how do we use our tools, and I now regard AI as one of our tools to actually create profitability for the business through optimal or pleasurable experiences, right, or experience design. So that's really key for me to kind of bring home, to say what does creation and generation mean in our space, right? Does it mean we create packages automatically, recommendations? Obviously, that's something that we know. Are we pre-approving people and just having them opt into products as opposed to thinking about having to apply for a specific thing? What does this generate look like? Right. And internally, I mean, here, like I said, I work in Old Mutual, so we have a lot of models that kind of start to do this thing, and now working with the data science team to really try and understand, they are predicting a lot of things, right? Now we're like, wow, man, that sounds great. Now the challenge is, from a user experience perspective, what is it? How does that actually translate into an optimal experience, right? And that's really the challenge. And I'm hoping that at some point to be able to come back and say, at a case study type of level, to say, these are the things that we've done. This is what's working out, because I think it's an important conversation to sustain. Cool. Now I was thinking about, okay, so what is this experience, right? Like, these are very simple images of stuff, but having understood the objective from a design perspective, to say we want to move into convenience, pleasure and meaningfulness, and we want to leverage this kind of detection, prediction, generate. What is it that's happening? What is it that's actually sitting behind some of these, right? So I quickly kind of try to find these examples just on my phone, like almost literally before this, to say what are the things that would intersect all of those, right? So starting on the right, with the Uber, right? The Uber experience leverages essentially my individual behavior, right? So the three options that I see there are definitely in the order of likelihood, in terms of based on where I am right now, the places that I would probably go to, right? If I take a flight to Cape Town, as soon as I get out of Cape Town, as soon as I get out of the plane, these options will change, right? They'll change to the Cape Town office, or they'll change to the hotel that I would usually go to if I'm in Cape Town, right? So that's kind of now detection from, in terms of behavior, understanding and predicting my individual behavior, right? And then creating shortcuts, right? I no longer have that experience of walking through the airport trying to type and trying to remember what the specific name of the specific hotel that you're going to, right? And that's the experience to know getting off the plane that you just open Uber, you tap on one thing, and you're a go, right? It's a significant shift in experience, right? Because we know when you search for stuff, nowadays there's a lot to search through, right? We use Netflix and stuff like that. You know that when you search, it's not such a clear-cut thing, right? As much as those systems may be advanced. So the mere fact that they've eliminated search altogether and they have a shortcut, this is one of the design patterns, right? Where shortcut takes a kind of different meaning to say, actually, we want to, at this level, create shortcuts for this activity, for this task, right? What are the models that inform that? What is the data that we need to be able to train those models, right? So those are the conversations that we can now have with the data science teams, right? So if we were to create or generate this shortcut, what would we have to predict? We can form some hypotheses, right? And then we could go to the data team and help them and say, okay, cool, this is what we want to do, and try and find the data that could train and refine that, right? At the same time, we could do some qualitative research to say, what does that experience look like, and is it worth pursuing, right? And that's really important, right? Because you don't want to just do it for the sake of doing it, right? There isn't a lot that's happening here, but the mere fact that they've invested in specifically getting this thing right is to me was mind-blowing the first couple of times I experienced it, and I still think it's super convenient. So you start to see where convenience has come together now with the machine learning capabilities, right? Then we've got in the middle, we've got creation, right? So here we know that other than the shortcuts at the top, right, which are really obviously my kind of recent playlist or the things that I've been playing quite a lot lately, right here at the top. I hope this thing is not too small for you guys. You start to get recommendations of specific artists, right? So this is a new release, for instance, right? So this is the pleasurable stuff. It knows exactly, your individual behavior, and maybe some of the people that behave like you. So there's an overlap into collective behavior, perhaps, right? But, the new release that I saw recently with this one, right? It was pleasurable, right? When I saw it, I was like, wow, this is, I can't wait to get into this, right? And it's really based on those things, right? It's really about, okay, cool, data science team, what is it that we know about specific groups of people or specific people, right? Or we want to be able to recommend things, or we want to be able to to create these shortcuts, right? What do we know, right? How can we get it right? Or how can we start to get it right? Because like I said, it's also an iterative process, the process of designing these things or maturing these models to the point where, they have maybe a 90%, 99% accuracy. I don't know with your personal experiences, how many times maybe you get a release and it's like, why am I getting a notice on this person's album? It does happen, but when it happens, they're so few and far in between. So that's the second level. So it kind of meets that pleasurable, and it also leverages, like we said, it has a reference to, you start to see what the machine learning capability does.
Yeah, I mean, like this is quite interesting because I remember, when we had like CDs and cassettes, you had to be intentional about, knowing which artist or which song you want to listen to. And I've gotten lazier over time, and now with Spotify, I don't have to think. All I need to know is that, okay, now I want to listen to music, and and the decision to choose what music, it's heavily influenced by the algorithms, heavily implement the playlist they create is heavily, influenced by, how well, they know me, etc. And the, the decision to listen to music, doesn't feel so heavy anymore, because it used to be so intentional, and now it feels seamless.
Oops.
Yeah. I'll be happy to hear your thoughts, Pablo.
Right. Sorry. I mean, I was a bit skeptical about interrupting you, but
No, no, it's
Mpumelelo,
fine.
I
Please
found it
join in. Yeah.
right. I found it interesting that you put up a screenshot of your Uber and how it predicts your next location, because one of the biggest stories for us over the past 2 weeks or so has been a guy who got an Uber, and it was supposed to be probably about a 15 quid ride, and he ended up paying almost 800,000 Rand. Why? Because he landed location, he picked a place because places are usually the same, and it actually took him to Australia. For what was supposed to be a 15-minute ride, he ended up paying for driving from the UK to Australia. So it just brings it back to, again, statistical errors. That difference is very important. And then it also goes back to what you said, Mputumi, about who is then reliable for those type of errors, because I mean, if anyone woke up to a bill like that, would all have a panic attack. But yeah, and how does that impact his experience? And therefore, again, for us who have read that story, we might now go back and say, actually, now when I'm using Uber, let me not allow to predict and always just type in and be more cautious about what I'm actually doing and more intentional. So yeah, it's always just it's a give and take.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a great example, because I remember ordering food for someone, and because I was too far from the, a delivery address, there was that like warning. I think, as much as we try to simplify the experience, based on predictive behavior, it's also great for us as designers to also, focus on predicting what could go wrong, so that we can, mitigate and minimize, such possibilities.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that's a good that's an interesting case to raise, because I I also I experience a lot of frustration using Uber, right? Especially like Uber Eats and stuff like that. When I'm not where I usually am, right? But but the specific use case, and it was just showing me that also my benchmark for Uber's kind of convenience is really high, right? Like I have a very high benchmark for it working and working correctly, right? My expectation for it is to work all the time, right? And if I try to benchmark the experience versus, so would you rather it recommends versus it doesn't, I would still want it to recommend, right? Just based on how much I've become accustomed to the convenience that this specific experience, because this is what I do most of the time, right? Is to travel from probably a lot of predictable type of places, right? So yeah, but I mean that's a good call out to say, there's certain use cases, where you are in a new place and maybe it gets it wrong. What's the recourse and what's the fail safe? Yeah. So yeah, so I'm keen to, to hear any feedback, even at a later stage about any of our experiences in that regard. But I think that for me, like I said, it still doesn't detract necessarily, right? From the positives that I have, right? Um, if I'm not at home and I'm trying to order food, it's a bit of a challenge, right? But I'm hoping that over time that it will also reach this level of convenience. Let's put it that way.
Yeah,
Cool.
and I mean, like, we need to be kind, to ourselves, because we always need to remind ourselves of the 80% scenario, right? And so that we don't spend so much time trying to perfect, the 20%. I think they are there, because now at this stage, they can start caring about the 20% scenario.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think even in the autonomous driving space, right, there's still some margins of error, right? It's just a matter of how bad that error is, right? Um, yeah, ending up at the wrong place, sometimes can be extremely can have extreme consequences, like you mentioned. So so yeah, it's not foolproof. It's definitely not foolproof. Um, yeah. So then I wanted to go to kind of the next level of that experience pyramid, right? That says, you know, you open your phone, you pick up your phone, it vibrates, and you get something like this that just shows you, a reminiscent image of, a little pool party or whatever that you hosted, right? Um, and it's meaningful, right? It really pulled on my heartstrings. Like, wow, that day, the kids were having fun, da 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 da, da, and that was great, you know so now you see how detection starts to happen, and how it can intersect with a certain, with, in this case anyway, if we use this pyramid, right, the highest level of, experience design, right? The designers in this case didn't necessarily have to do a lot. I mean, the thing, I think there's different variations of these collages, and I think they've done relatively well, and they stay fresh at a design level, right? But if we think about the experience and how meaningful this is, right, and how meaningful it can be in different scenarios, right, it's fun. It's quite significant, right? And this is really where we want to be with our experiences, right? This is really where we want to be, and I'm trying to be deliberate around not really talking about about products, apps, UI, or anything of that nature, but about the human-centered experiences that us as design practitioners are aiming towards, right? This thing works, now what, right? This thing was already working well. You could upload your pictures automatically, it would back them up, etc., etc. And then all of a sudden you get something like this, and you realize that, shucks, there are people thinking about the experience, right? Today's my mom's birthday. I got images of a dinner we had, a couple of years ago on her birthday, right? The only reason actually I didn't use that one was because it didn't recognize that it was a birthday thing. It didn't recognize anything. This one was saying make a splash. And that was the reason why I decided to use this specific one. There were many examples, and I was trying to find ones that had a descriptor that was kind of more human, right? Where you see there's, creation at this collage type of level, where it brings things together, creates the collage, but it also, says, hey, we could probably, there's a whole lot of water there. We could say, make a splash. So this is the technology itself really exists. It's really about, us engaging as designers, us engaging our data science teams, and really testing out those models. And I've also started to kind of just dabble at a light level up with that, and I'm really keen to come back and start to talk about, how do we tinker as designers without any knowledge of code or anything like that, right? How do we tinker with some of that? So yeah, so those were really the three examples that I thought would speak to these machine learning capabilities and what we are trying to do at an experiential level, where we're moving from functional to a more emotional, more engaging experience. Cool. And then while obviously thinking about how do we design these predictive interactions, these recommendations, these shortcuts, how do we create these things, right? There are certain patterns, right? There are certain emergent design patterns that say, okay, cool, if this is what you want to do, this is how you go about doing it, right? And this is how you can start to have a conversation with your data science team, right? So some of these some of these patterns are fairly kind of self-explanatory, and we've spoken to them already. We've got things like suggested features. Obviously we know what that is. The same thing that you get when there's a new feature and it shows up on your dashboard, right? In our space, we were trying to when I was reading about this specific pattern, and I was thinking about, we're trying to you in most of our spaces we are doing like MVPs, right? You launch an MVP and you iterate and you iterate and you iterate and you iterate, right? But how do you start to create an experience around suggested features as this thing grows and grows and grows? And how do you make them in such a way, like I said, that they are contextual, right? If I don't have, let's say, in the banking scenario, I don't have beneficiaries, and the suggested feature is to make a payment. Maybe that's not the right thing at that point in time. Maybe statements or something else that's more contextual to my experience or my use case or my context is the thing. So there are some design features and some design patterns that we can start to use around creating the experiences, so we don't have to always kind of thumb suck them, like optimizing feature discovery, right? Which is really what suggested features does, right? How do you optimize discovery? A lot of the content suggestions on things like Netflix obviously are geared at really optimizing discovery, right? But what was key about highlighting this specific feature, as obvious as it may seem, is that optimizing feature discovery. Because as we design our apps and as they mature, or as we design, the digital products primarily that we work on, and as they mature, how do we optimize for people to actually discover those features, right? So that was really key. Conversational UI we've spoken about. I think the one that's worth highlighting here is graceful failure, right? And that really it's really a slight, or maybe not a slight, but a deviation from, or an increment above what we usually do in our normal day-to-day, like error prevention. We've got messages, you've done something wrong, fix it like this, or whatever the case may be, in forms and in journeys, right? But it's speaking to how do you do that with a little bit more grace, based on the fact that the model has failed, in essence, right? If Uber fails, for instance, to actually get you a car, right? You open up the Uber, you want a car, and there's no car in your area. How does it actually do that? How do you actually communicate it, right? It's distinctly different from an error message. There are no cars available, see for yourself type of thing, versus trying to explain what's happening and what trying to explain what the platform is trying to do, right? Adding some transparency to what the platform was trying to do, and that you should try a bit later, right? So that's what graceful failure starts to talk about. And then obviously we've spoken about personalization and shortcuts. And I mean, personalization from Amazon, now Netflix especially, we start to see how it plays out. And we also start to see, when there's a lot of content like on Netflix, for instance, what the issues start to become, and how they start to create things like, this is the top pick for you, or whatever the case may be, because they're really trying to, personalize and make that platform or that content library smaller, right, as you experience it anyway. And that's really where I wanted to end off today, with these kind of high level patterns. And I'm hoping that Putumia, we can share some of the references. I don't see my reference slide is not coming up, but there's some kind of the key references anyway, that I kind of use for my understanding and to prep for our conversation. and hopefully we can add those to the YouTube video. And yeah, and that's where it's at. Put to me.
Yeah, sure. No, thanks a lot, Mbumi. Yeah, so guys, I'm not sure if you have questions. I've been looking at the comments, and I'm not seeing any, specific questions. I just saw a few comments, and I hope ML should do no harm. I saw that comment from Zoletu Kubesa, and yeah, I think the rest of the. Sorry?
Maybe let's pause on that one a little bit.
Sure.
So I think one of the kind of insights that stood out for me as I was kind of trying to form my thoughts around this thing is that human-centered practice or human centricity or design, the design that we do, the human-centered design that we do, should also apply, right? And I think that once we have that relationship, right, once we have that relationship with our data science teams and the people that actually write those, that actually build the models, that actually kind of choose which data sets to feed to train those models, and we can start to test those models together. We can start to inform those models. So we can start to have, a design informed machine learning solutions or outcomes, right? And I think that as we've seen, if some of us have seen, like there's a huge kind of there's a huge misunderstanding, or there's a lack of actual human-centered design in some of these models, right? And therefore, that's why we see some of the biases coming in, because somebody who has a certain, mind frame or bias, or is of a certain demographic, etc., chooses certain data and doesn't assess it against some of these criteria, right? So yeah, so that's really it in terms of the harm. I think we are best placed from in the design practice to be able to test for that, right? To be able to test for what types of failures could happen, at what level, right? And I think there's enough use cases in terms of what types of harm machine learning can cause at an experiential level, right? So yeah, that's my thought on that as well, Papa.
Yeah. So there's one from Riyadh Gordon. It would be epic to unpack the possibilities of AI and ML in the e-commerce space. Yeah, so definitely, I've actually started preparing some content on the use cases, and I think that there's a lot to share. A lot of like design concepts that we can share, just so that we can see practically what is it that we can do. I mean, I was talking to a product design lead from Take a Lot earlier. How they use AI and ML to improve their search and the recommendations, which is quite cool. And there are a lot of like companies that are actually doing this, and I was expecting one of the speakers to come and join us, Kamani Naidu. She's done behavioral economics, and her company, she's the founder she's the co-founder and the CEO of Sky. They do like draft designs, craft AI based designs, and they have like the technical capability. I would have loved to have her to actually share some of the work that they're doing in South Africa. And yeah, I think definitely we do need to have that session for us to share. And I'm more interested and curious to share what is happening in South Africa, not just in South Africa, but in Africa, right? And I know there's a lot happening in Nigeria, Kenya, and other African, countries. And yes, we can be inspired by Uber, Airbnb, Twitter, etc. Right? There's quite a lot, and I think when you're talking about recommendations, right? I would love us to unpack the conversation, like simple examples, like like on Netflix, even the thumbnails that they generate, they're auto-generated, right? They will pick based on on the on the person who's watching. They will use the most like relevant thumbnail, maybe because you've watched a movie, you know, with your favorite actor, and the same movie has got that favorite actor, right? They will pull such like, you know, powerful, you know, thumbnails with an intent, you know, to persuade you, right? I mean, like even like such like you know like level of attention, right, is quite great, and you
Yeah.
know the algorithms that they use, you know, to recommend, because it's not just about, you know, the top watched or the most watched, etc., right? But it's really about going deep into the experience. And the big question for us as designers is to really understand when a customer takes an action, what informs that action, and what happens afterwards, right? Just like when you take a picture, right? What is the intent? The intent is to, you know, to share, and also what is the pain point of having to share when you have so many pictures, right? That's why you, oh, okay, to have an auto-generated collage, right, would make sense. And also, what is the intent? The intent, you know, is to capture like, you know, beautiful moments, and as a result of that, you know, a user will end up taking 20 pictures, and they will also face another pain point of having to delete, right? To even have a solution where you can grab, you know, images that look similar, right, to help you to clean up your space would be a great like AI-driven activity, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, I can unpack, right? You know, and but basically, the main aim is really for us to reflect on this conversation, and you know, definitely, I'd love us to have like a round two where we spend a lot of time, like, you know, showcasing, you know, use cases, and also like showcasing what is possible, right? Even when we like use, I mean, I was like checking out, you know, Runway ML, which is like a video editor based, it's using a lot of like AI, right? To take that thing to the next level, right? We should be able to even use a profile picture of a logged in customer on an app. When you see an advert, we should be able to auto generate if your face and you being part of that advert, you know, you know, to persuade you, right? So that you can imagine yourself being part of the experience, right? And being able to generate, you know, there's like machine learning and AI driven, you know, content in real time, looking at how, you know, we even design for like adaptive content, right? Being able to, you know, to use the rich data that we get from Google Analytics, right? Knowing how far, you know, customers scroll, knowing what interests customers, knowing, you know, if this customer is returning, etc., right? How do we actually tailor that experience, and use some of the techniques that are being used, right? And we can even take something as boring as, you know, selling a, I don't know, funeral cover, or maybe reading an article about a funeral cover, right? There's quite a lot, right? There's more to it, you know, being able to auto-generate, you know, like rich images, using natural processing language, you know, at scale, right? Being able to, you know, translate a, a text-based article using, you know, AI to use, you know, let's say to create a video that is like, you know, engaging, right? Instead of that activity being manual, right? There's quite like a lot, you know, and I mean, I
Yeah.
believe was
Yeah.
Bobby?
Yeah, I mean, let's do the follow up. I think,
Yeah.
Putumi, and we can address some of the stuff, and the e-commerce point. I mean, we've got some stuff. I mean, on the Old Mutual app, we have a model that's running to predict what product is you're most likely to buy, and then overlaying an AI platform that says, for me to position this, to this person, I need to understand their demographics, for instance, right? So I need to understand, are they male? Are they female? Are they married? Do they have kids? Right? So when I get it, or when I get a recommendation on the app, or it also happens on WhatsApp, I get a black guy with a kid, right? And maybe with the wife next to them, that speaks about that savings and or investment product in the context of that milieu, right? That family scenario, right? And for the most part, it's accurate. It's just obviously we're going through through the beta stages and the trading and trying to make sure that the thing is right. But I'm keen to come back and really just share some of those examples. Um, I think before we go, guys, I really wanted to be. I was really thinking about whether we should throw a lot of examples um, in the talk, right? Which we can do as time goes by, or if we should discuss the concepts and how we can probably connect them to having better conversations and starting to explore this machine learning space, right? Because it sounds really complicated, this data science and this artificial intelligence, but what are these key things that we need to understand about it, and what are the types of conversations we can have, and how do we interpret some of the stuff that we see in our apps, right? How do we interpret it from from both perspectives, from an experience design perspective, which is what's most important to us, right? And then from a tech from an AI perspective. So yeah, so I hope you found that useful.
Yeah. Thanks. Babalo, I'm gonna let you to jump in, and I want us to close after that.
Okay. Yeah, no, thank you, Mpumelelo, for sparking a conversation. You've gotten me thinking, definitely for sure. I'm a little more familiar with AI and machine learning in the augmented reality space and educational, socio-educational programs, museums, and how to integrate it into that experience, just to heighten learning for everyone all around, different ages, but specifically looking at children and perhaps even the elderly. So, yeah, it's been a very interesting, insightful conversation. And I think examples are useful, but it would be nice maybe for, as we go on, is to keep it more to the content, and then the examples will just be something that when people do bring them up they can, but maybe we could just focus more on the content to maybe further understand it and help us work with the nitty gritty of what's really going on, and how we can then apply that to the African context.
Yeah. I mean, definitely, I think we'll try to have a balance, and also trying to think about the audience, because there are junior designers, who might benefit quite a lot by just, highlighting that, hey, this is the experience. Remember this, and actually behind this experience, these are the concepts, that inform the experience, so that even if people are are lost, but at least based on the examples, they can relate. And I think we can just find our rhythm, and see what is the best way going forward. Yeah, so I don't know, Mpumi, do you want to say anything before we close?
No, that's it. That's it. I mean, thanks, guys, and thanks to you for the platform. I mean, we'll look at the questions and then maybe we can respond to some of them at a later stage. But yeah, but that's it. And I'm keen for us to come back and keep evolving it, because I think this is it's going to be interesting. I think definitely, and doing a little bit more justice to our design patterns, right? Because that's really where some of the translation starts to happen. So yeah, thanks, guys.
Sure. Thanks. Yeah, I'm seeing the last comment from Riyadh. Amazing session, folks. Thanks so much. You've reignited my passion for AI in design. Yeah, Riyadh, it would be great to have you. Please let's talk offline. And guys, anyone that is keen to help us, please reach out. The platform is for everyone, and the main aim is to connect, inspire, and build an African design community. So yeah, let's collaborate beyond the brands that we're working for. And we hope to see you next week. We have these sessions every Thursday at 3 to 4. You can show your interest to attend, and so that you can easily catch up with the sessions if you can't attend them on time. And so guys, it was great to have you. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate the level of energy, and hoping that we'll get better at this the more we do it. Thank you so much, and I hope you can check out the upcoming sessions. Really interesting, and we need to find a gap to really come back to this conversation so that we can strengthen it. Thank you. Cheers.
Thanks.
Cheers.